stalkers in the background or in the foreground always, even in a spot where there should be no people. See, another stalker. And they come in all different types. They look as though they're just normal people, but they are all combined. They are all in a patrolling, stalking system. That car that is just going to pull in here, that person is not pulling in for any reason. There's nothing around here. It's now nearly dark, and basically no one ever walks through here, but when I come here, see how it's just pulling right in front because I stopped to look at this bird here, or actually I just stopped to have a drink, but just decided to get the mobile out because I for once have it on me, and decided to film the ibis bird. And see how these stalkers all come around, look, see? Stalkers, patrollers, pretending they're just random people around. They're all like, you could say they're one mind, but they're just beings that basically, see this one getting out here? This is an old person getting out here. There's nowhere, they're not going anywhere, they're just programmed, and basically they're anti-human, anti-life, see? What? Just going in front there. There's nothing open there. It's all closed down. All closed down. But you see, they have to watch and patrol me because they don't like human beings for whatever reason. Because they're basically disciples of the technically insane, technical God of this world. Technically insane, or not technically insane, well yeah, technically insane. In other words, that means like clinically insane, or just from a human standpoint. If you follow and attack people that you don't know, or a human being that you don't know for no reason, apart from the fact that you have what I'm told is like, basically, don't forget that the God of this world basically has always resented and had contempt for the human being when it came into existence on the earth, because of its own mindset of wanting to be God, but realizing that it was a creation of the Creator God, a technical being, an artificial being, and not really life. But and rather than, it's a bit like different species, like these birds here. They're not going to pretend to be something they're not. But the God of this world pretends to be a human being, only because it thinks that it needs to be God, and worshipped and idolized and obeyed, and wants and takes some sort of pride or satisfaction in controlling and making human beings subservient to it in the earth. And that's essentially the name of the game. There's a patroller there in front of me, stopping, and these are like military, basically. It's basically a military operation around human beings. The birds are probably the only natural thing, but see this fella here, that's a military operative. Some of them look like what they actually are. In other words, they actually look like army soldiers, but they won't wear an army uniform. But they look like that. They have that kind of demeanour, that impression that you get. But most of them are civilians that have the same mindset, because essentially it's like, I suppose it's like, you know, they're all what you'd call kind of psychopathic or psycho in nature, at a basic level, just as the God of this world was found to be that way. that was why the God of this world couldn't be part of creation, because the God of this world didn't want to, I guess, just like the psychopathic individuals that we're now, well, they're not individuals either, by the way, because they're not separate, because they do all combine. They combine in vast numbers. That's why they call them legions, the legions of Lucifer, the legions, you know, whatever, because basically that's what they do. They combine because they're like operatives, or you know, basically the earth is really almost like it's since the invasion of you know, the technical God entity of this world, and you can put whatever name you like, but I like to use that name because it seems appropriate. There's a siren going. Every single thing that is in the country, every department, it's not just the army and the military that work for the powers that be that control, say, this country and every country in the world, mostly I would imagine, but they control every department. So the military is no different to the police force or the or all the other departments. Of course, when a human being, and this has been pointed out to me, like goes to a hospital or to different departments or to the police department, I would think that certain departments like the police would be the same as the army or the military, because they're authority figures, aren't they? They're there to employ force and power and control and enforce the law of the land, even though if they are part of a secret patrol force against, you know, what I would call innocent human beings, just because they're human and because they're not, you know, they're actually breaking their own laws. But because they make up 95% of the population, as you can imagine, it's like you're not going to have any witnesses, are you, to any crimes? Because basically, if any department or any civilian breaks the law, if they're part of that system, and if 95% of the population, civilians making up most of it, are actually part of the military, the army and the police, etc., etc., then of course, you know, there's no witnesses to anything. So therefore, although they are there to uphold the laws that they themselves create and impose on human beings, and human beings abide by them, everyone agrees to it, basically they're secretly bending those rules and actually breaking them because they have the numbers. Because there's no one to support the human being. If you're surrounded in given areas by well, in this area it's more than 95% because it's a total military base. But you know, if you have everyone that's around you part of a patrol control system for a human being, and it's an aggressive system, it's not like just patrolling to make sure that this or that. It's actually trying to control you, and it makes your life unpleasant. Like, I'm surprised I can sit here for a few minutes without, well, actually without the patrollers Or, oh, well, look, there's one sitting behind me. Look, I was wrong. See? Basically, I thought, I'm surprised because I thought because I had the mobile that they wouldn't expose us. Look, we've got one perched here, they just stop, and then we have these ones here. So basically, this one here is a stalker. They all are. And there's a stalker actually in front of me too. Look, my mistake. See, they leave these cars and vans all over the suburb, everywhere. So basically, all these civilian stalkers can get into any vehicle at any time, and they do. And they look innocent, see, they look as though they just stopped here, but they don't just stop. They're basically watching me. Why do they watch me just stopping to have a drink or to look at the birds or whatever? Because they don't want me to be happy. I have to be unhappy because everything is frequency, vibration and energy, and the frequency and vibration is controlled much more by the mood of a human being than by the android artificial beings, because the android artificial beings only have one mood, and that's unhappy, whereas a human being can be happy or unhappy, and basically they control my environment and the frequency and vibration of the area by keeping me unhappy, because that's their vibration, that's their frequency, they're comfortable in it. They don't a happy vibration, even though they pretend, of course, to be happy, normal human beings, but they're not at all. They detest human beings because artificial intelligence, or even an android being, cannot experience a high vibration. In fact, I don't think they experience, they don't actually experience anything. They're just basically programmed for control. But as you can see, they pretend to be real people. This car's just pulling out in front, but it doesn't prove anything. But if you understand that there should be no one in this actual area, and that if they weren't patrollers, they're not people randomly walking through. There's nowhere where any of these people go, and it's nearly dark now, so this car here, if I sit here at any time, there will always be a car that pulls out in front of me. In fact, if I stay long enough, someone will get into that one. Even though that fella come from nowhere and got into that car, that's all vacant, all these places are vacant. That's how you know that it's not real. Also, I've lived around here for 28 years, so basically, see how, and also the cars, every vehicle on the road is totally, she's just going to stay here. She's listening to my every word. They know your every thought, they read your mind. How they interpret it is open to each individual. The demigods, in other words, the most advanced, the most creative or the most intelligent of these beings, I'm guessing, they interpret the human thought in a much more advanced way. Whereas I think the average ones are really just basic stalking, patrolling, controlling, very primitive in their manner. They know how to torment and persecute human beings in a very limited, when I say limited, I mean in a very basic way, but it's very effective, because a human being is you know, like you could be, it doesn't matter how clever you think you are or how much you understand it, if your sight and sound is, it's a wonder the planes aren't coming over. In fact, as soon as I turn the mobile off, I'll have jets going over my head. But essentially they try to control, anyway, I'm folding up because they actually try to control human beings, but I'll go over here. See, that's just they're basically, you could say that they're the same as serial, they're serial stalkers, they're serial, they have, they're inverted in their whole mindset, and you could say that from a human standpoint, well, is not, what is a stalker after all? Like, what is a stalker's mindset? What makes a person stalk someone? that they don't actually know, and in vast numbers. You see, each individual must have some sort of mental, some sort of, they've got a mindset going that is not in line with reality, as you can imagine. The only problem that I have with all of this is that the demigods that are on the computer will be saying exactly what I'm saying, and they are also a part of it. They're your elite, more intelligent, more creative, more advanced androgyne beings, and I have to emphasize all those points because essentially they're it's a reverse world, and they're inverted and reversed around in every single way at all levels. The differences are minor, and that's why most people see these two. They're just two stalkers and patrollers. They're always around me. I'm never on my own. See, there's two more in the background there. Just my eyes pick them up as though I'm literally surrounded all the time. This is a very secluded spot for me. This is like where there shouldn't be any activity. Like if these people were normal human beings, there wouldn't be anyone here at all. This car park a few years ago used to be empty all the time because basically there isn't anything round here or any reason for people to park here, and especially at night time. But of course, yes, there is a patrol plane going in the sky over there, but it won't come out. But usually they're over my head, but they know that I'm filming. They know what you're going to do before you do it. They read the mind, because don't forget, my mind has been taken from me, or at least suppressed. So I should be able to decipher the future, or at least be able to know what I'm going to do before I do it. Of course, in some respects I may well, but I can't figure out why they have access to my mind. Total transhumanism at a real level. See how that car's pulling out in front with the bright lights? They put the bright headlights, and we have two stalkers going past, straight past. They patrol, and look, we've got a stalker in the background. Oh goodness gracious, where did she even come from? Like, where do these people even come from? These are abandoned buildings here, and yet look, there's one there in the background, see? And she's going to come and pretend to feed some animals because she saw me looking at the birds. See, they're very competitive, and as you can see how insane they are. This is car pulled just right in front. They're basically insane with their need for control and their competitive nature. They see a human being as a threat. You don't have to be doing anything threatening to them. You just have to be existing. And an older lady like me that does very little is still seen as something that they, in their own minds, these people think that I'm competing with them. Like, if I look at the birds, they think that is somehow doing something to them. So you can't exist at all, and they control you, you see. Right in front you have these stalkers, and they pretend that they're normal people. They're not normal people. They are the God entity of this world's extensions, the tentacles of the God entity. It's just, you can use their followers, whether all of them are fully conscious or not, I'm not sure. I think that probably some are fully conscious and aware. It's a bit like being part of a religion. You may, like for instance, if you're a Satanist, you'll behave a certain way, but you may not consciously worship that God. But if you are acting against human beings in a destructive, negative manner, see all these patrollers around. Oh, this is late of a night. These people are just patrollers. Look, see, he's just going to pull right in front. That's a patrolling car. They're not going anywhere. They're military men in that car, and I'm folding up. But either way, I'm just going to sit here. See, we've got the patroller there. She just popped out of that vacant lot. They actually pop out of empty, abandoned shops and things. Every single house, every single building in this entire suburb is totally controlled and run by these beings. Every single human being is not a normal, natural human being, and by that I just simply mean is that they do not operate on what you call a higher vibration or frequency. That just simply means that they hate happiness or anything that is not controlling and not part of their control system of Earth or human beings on the Earth, because it's a bit like they're kind of like angry anti-life machine survival beings. They live in the moment, I think, from what I can see. That's been my observation, but it's also been what I've told, but I have seen it. They don't think about past the moment, and that's why they get energy. They see how they make unnecessary noise. She's going to pull out now, and yet she come out of nowhere. Where did that car even come from? Where did that vehicle come from? There was only this one vehicle here, wasn't there? And then that other one pulled away. How do they do it? I don't know how they do it, but basically, I've lost track of what I'm saying. But basically, they're sidetracked. I better fold up actually, because the planes will soon start, and because they know I'm filming, because there's a plane actually going in my line of sight straight in front, but it won't be picked up. It is a very small one. Normally they're very loud, noisy, and right over your head. They're total control, military control planes that the people in the area will pretend are actually going on a destination, but of course they're not going anywhere. Just like this vehicle only pops out and drives out with that person as soon as I sit here. And it doesn't matter where I sit. I could sit down the darkest lane and the same thing would happen, where vehicles and cars will pull out and people will pop out. It won't matter. I'm not allowed to have 2 seconds on my own of privacy. They have to control you 24/7. You know, even when you're asleep, they're sending negative energy at your body. And don't forget that there's many things that we don't understand, that I don't understand. So they're using many methods. They use physical and psychological abuse of human psychology. They know how to. But even if you were just, even the simplest person would understand that if you stalk someone, or that if you patrol someone all the time, to where you're always making that person aware that someone is watching them and following them, but also if you are surrounding that person with negative noise all the time. Surprisingly, it stopped at this moment, but usually the noise goes on and off most days, some unbearable, some but it conditions you to be hypersensitive to sound and your surroundings. Basically, they're turning you into a paranoid, hypersensitive human being, which you normally wouldn't be. You would normally think that everything around you was random, and you would only experience anxiety or stress if you were in, like immediate danger, whereas you feel as though you're surrounded by these patrolling stalkers, and you don't know what's going on in their mind. You have to presume that they're not allowed to actually, that it's psychological control, that they're not actually allowed to. But even so, when the vehicles are pulling around you and surrounding you, and even the huge semi-trailers and buses and things are making enormous noise and pulling so close to you, they know that it's intimidating, they know that it's frightening for you, and they know that you're scared. But And it's because it's continual too, and this is the point that has been made, and this is true of what I experience. If it was just the odd incident once a week or something, you would be able to survive it. But when it's happening 24/7, every day of the week, every day of the year, non-stop, and you know that it's intentional too, it's not like you just think, oh, it's accidental. I mean, it's basically the age-old patroller just went past, car just went through here. You know, these vehicles that go through here, they never used to go through here at all. I mean, that probably mightn't make sense unless you actually live in an area. But see, this car's doing the in and out pull. They basically are doing these car manoeuvres around you all the time. It's a total program. Like every vehicle on the road is in conjunction with the other vehicles. They all are it's basically an army. And yet it looks like natural traffic, but they're not on the road going anywhere. They come onto the road at the time that a human being goes outside. That's basically it, you know, and they come round. See how she just walked through here, but it doesn't matter. See, I look as though I'm silly saying that, but basically that is their life. That is their video game, is patrolling me. I'm like the target of their video game because they're out of touch with reality, and they make their own reality by turning this suburb and my life into a video game that gives them satisfaction. It's like a real life video game for them. See that car pulling right in front with the headlights should even enormously bright usually. That's not as bright as what they normally are. Sometimes I can't see in front of me. In fact, most of the time when I'm walking down the road of a night time, I can't even see in front of me because of the bright headlights. This is a stalker going past to another patroller. That patroller knows the one that went just before. Both those individuals are the same as being part of a gang or a community. In fact, they all are, except that it's an entire suburb and the entire region of the inner west, which is many suburbs, many 100,000 people are all part of this, because they don't experience high vibration. They don't have vibration. They're technical beings, so therefore they can't experience or make any happiness for themselves. They pretend to be real human beings. They pretend to be happy. They do the things. They copy and watch a human being so that they can then imitate that human being and pretend to be a human being. So if I was walking a dog, that's why everyone in Leichhardt walks a dog. Every house. Every person. They all do these human activities, but they don't actually choose that themselves. They don't enjoy it even, but they do it because, you know, and they walk their children. Their children are merely handbags, the same as the dogs are handbags, to make themselves look like authentic, real people when they're really artificial androgyne beings. They're a different species altogether, and any self-confessed psychopath will tell you this. You know, if you listen to the psychopathic professors of psychology, they will explain to you exactly what they are and how they think. The only problem with the internet is that you have the reverse psychology taking place in 99% of the internet, where the internet is also a control system. It's part of this God entity's control force. It's the same as these controlling beings that are around me. They're all the same. It's just that they're covering a different area. Basically, the whole earth is a mind-controlled system for a human being. Because the God of this world has always resented and felt that it needed to be God, and therefore to show creation that it can control its kind or its creation. Even though, of course, the God of this world was also a created being. But yes, they look normal and natural. Doesn't matter how young or how old they are. The children are part of it. The really young ones are part of it. The really old ones are part of it. The age, they just inhabit that particular body. Some people might say it's a clone body. It probably is, but it's a slightly different than a natural human body, only in the sense that it's a duality body. That means that it combines man-woman. It's not 100% one or the other. It's not an individual, real-life, natural human being. And it doesn't have any happy feelings. So therefore it's a total controlling being. And what it wants to control, this one's come back again, what it wants to and seeks to control is a human being. Because it can't control itself, because it doesn't have its own, it doesn't kind of, I can't really explain that, but it can't create happiness for itself because it doesn't vibrate at that level. It vibrates in the dead, dark, low frequency vibration. And, you know, I mean, just put it this way, you could say love-hate, you could say dark-light. I've said it before, but everyone else is saying it too, but it's essentially that. The only problem is that those that are saying it are part of the dark, but they're just your more elite, your more advanced, more creative, more elite demigods of the internet and even in your reality. They're your elite performers. They're the ones who are more successful. They're the ones that have more influence. They're the ones that impress more people. They're the ones that more people would trust and sometimes even worship if you're like you know, a real creative performer. But it's all creative, but essentially it's, in some respects, it's actually not, because although it's creative, it is not human, but it's also not anything that relates to a human, because if you don't experience happiness and you vibrate low, you can be creative, but you need to copy the thoughts, and that's where the psychic mind control comes in, or the technology that reads the human mind, the technical beings that read the human mind, because they have to interpret even music from a human standpoint, and because they're particularly more advanced, more intelligent or more creative, they can do that. But they don't experience that, not the same way that a human does, because otherwise, why do they need to read my mind? Why do they have to use my thoughts in the reality? Why do they copy doing things even in this area that I think of, but then they take the credit for it because the council and the military operatives and all the beings don't know how to do anything positive. They only know how to control and take down, really, if you think about it. And that's exactly what they do, but they have to pretend to also be creative and productive. So in order to do that, because it doesn't come natural for them, because they don't think creative in a happy way or in a constructive way, shall we say. They don't. They only think they're about control. They're about destroying things. And we're told this. It's a psychopathic nature. So in order to, there's a light coming off this car in front here. That's because there's a patrol car behind this vehicle here, which is shining its lights right in my eyes, even though it's not very bright, but the mobile won't pick it up. But they're basically watching me, and I'm intimidated, so I better go on. I can't continue on, to be honest.